Good morning, everybody. I'm Don Stewart, and welcome to another edition of Breaking News. Today is Monday, the 8th day of September, 2025. So much is happening right now, and we want to get right to it. We left you last night with the story from Donald Trump that he had given a proposal to Hamas that it's now or never. You accept this, or that's it. And basically release all the hostages immediately. We'll release some Palestinian prisoners. Israel will stop fighting. Right now, they'll hold their line there in Gaza. We'll negotiate a ceasefire, and that's your last chance to do this. Otherwise, Israel is going to make sure that you're obliterated. And so Hamas basically is what we're seeing said, well, we're looking forward to going back to the negotiating table, which means they just want to waste more time. They will not accept this in any way, shape, or form, the proposal that Trump gave. And so the headlines are all over the place today in Israel, as you can imagine, but there's a major headline, and we're going to look at that too. At least six were murdered in Jerusalem in a terror attack that took place, 21 wounded. We'll get to that story from the Jerusalem Post. Israel Katz, the defense minister, said the nation is striking now Gaza buildings, and Katz vowed hurricanes in the skies of Gaza City from the Times of Israel. Then we have another story from New York Post that Donald Trump has finally, said something about what's going to happen in Russia, and he said he's ready to punish Putin after the latest deadly assault on Ukraine, and that's something that we were wondering about. Is he going to go forward with punishing Ukraine? Excuse me, punishing Russia for what they're doing to Ukraine, or is he just going to walk away and let the Europeans take over? So, some really fascinating headlines. So, let's get right to them. The first headline, again, a lot of these are just not really, because you've got these leftist publications, they're not really fair and not really giving the whole story. From the YNET News, it's Hamas does not reject Trump's hostage proposal, and Israel said to be considering it. Now, Hamas does reject it. There's no way, shape, or form they're going to accept it. Their initial response was, we're looking forward to getting back to the negotiating table where we can get Israel to leave the Gaza Strip and we can, rebuild. So in other words, they're deflecting what Trump said. They're not even responding to it. But this is a take it or leave it proposal that Trump has given. And Israel initially said, yeah, we can live with this. And the reason they said this because they knew Hamas would not accept it. So that's where we're at on this first story. So what's interesting about that, we mentioned yesterday as we did the story, our good friend Larry Goldstein in Israel. Larry's a patent attorney, very well known. He's the top commentator in the website Jerusalem Post. When you want to hear something wise, you just look and see what Larry says. And he said, he actually took the words out of my mouth. Says, there's no way Hamas is going to go for this. So I emailed Larry afterwards and I said, thank you for that. And I mentioned the worry that I have that some of the leftists there in Israel, hostage families and others, and those around the world, the Europeans and whomever, will say, no, take any hostage deal that Hamas comes back. They said, okay, we'll do this, this, and this. But they want to remain in power. And you've got people that are shouting and screaming from Israel. You've got to accept it no matter what they want. And as Larry rightly said, no, they're good. There's no way Netanyahu's going to accept this. Netanyahu was very smart in saying we do accept the initial proposal of Trump because they know Hamas is not going to accept it. So that's where we're at right now. Hamas is saying we'll get back to the negotiating table, and it's not going to happen. So basically, it's seeming what's going on right now is Israel continues its uh, military campaign in Gaza City. We've got, as we're going to say, the second story that this terrible terrorist attack, and that just adds to the resolve of Israel to, to get rid of Hamas and the terrorists there. So this is where we're at right now. So we don't expect anything to happen with respect to any type of negotiated settlement where Hamas comes and agrees and the hostages are released. We wish it would happen, but it's just not going to happen. So there's other things going on. All right, so let's look at these other stories now as we put that one to rest, at least for the time being. At least six people were murdered in Jerusalem terror shooting, 21 wounded. This is from the Jerusalem Post. At least three of the ones killed in the attack were rabbis. These terrorists opened fire on a bus in Jerusalem, killing several at the scene. First responder said, when we arrived, we saw people lying unconscious on the road. At least six were murdered, dozens wounded, at least 21 wounded. And the terrorists were taken out. They were neutralized. Uh, After this, the IDF chief ordered further troop presence in the West Bank, because this is where these people came through a fence, it seems, in the West Bank or Judea and Samaria. They got into Jerusalem to be able to do this. The EU, of course, says Jerusalem terror shooting proves the need for a ceasefire in Gaza. See, this is the worry right now. even in the condemnation, that means we just got to stop. You got to stop fighting Israel. You have to have a ceasefire. And again, this is the last thing Israel needs to do right now. They need to cut the head of the snake off, and that's Hamas there. And they're doing a great job there in Jerusalem. We had a story yesterday. A third major high-rise building was destroyed in Gaza City that was part of the Hamas's, headquarters there, their command and control center. And also, too, there's a huge terror tunnel that they found in Gaza City. They also destroyed. So they're really getting the job done, as it were. And so the fighting continues to go on. In fact, headline number three, Israel Katz, the defense minister, says Israel said to strike Gaza buildings after Katz vows hurricanes in the skies over Gaza City. He said he demanded immediately that the Hamas terror group release the hostages and put down their weapons, or Gaza will be destroyed and you will be obliterated. And that's their future. They reportedly struck several more buildings in Gaza on Monday morning, hours after the defense minister said a powerful hurricane will hit the skies of Gaza City today, and the roofs of the towers will shake. Again, in recent days, they've conducted several strikes on the high rises that were used to conduct operations against the troops. They've warned residents to flee. The problem is this major offensive that they're putting together. 100,000 people have already left. That's good of Gaza City, but there's still close to a million there because Hamas is keeping them from leaving. So what we have now is sort of a stalemate, as it were, even though with the people leaving because Hamas is stopping them, not allowing them to leave, actually killing people that want to leave. But citizens are beginning to leave Gaza City, and Israel continues to move forward. Stalemate with respect to Hamas's allowing them to leave. Israel is being very careful in what they're doing, but they're going to go in and they're going to get rid of Hamas in Gaza City, and nothing is going to stop them. Netanyahu has vowed to continue on, and this proposal by Trump, even though Hamas said, we'll consider it, let's get back to the bargaining table, that's not going to make any difference whatsoever. So what we're going to see is the continued fighting there. That's the bottom line this morning, what we have for you. And so we keep our eyes on that. But there's another story we have to keep our eyes on too, because as we look at what the Bible has to say about the last days, we know one of the main players is Russia. Russia leading a last days invasion of Israel, according to Ezekiel 38:39. And we've been wondering out loud, well, what's Trump going to do with Russia? Because we talked about yesterday, it's the largest attack, is a New York Post story that's happened upon Ukraine in the 3.5 year war took place. Russia really bombarded Ukraine left and right with drones, with missiles, and that. And Trump basically said, enough is enough. And so that leads us to this story. So he is going to do something. Headline number four from from the New York Post. Trump is ready to punish Putin after the latest deadly assault on Ukraine. He declared he's ready to move ahead with a new round of sanctions against Russia if it pummeled Ukraine with the largest airstrike since the war began. He was asked by reporters whether he's ready to move to the second stage of sanctions against Russia, and he said yes. So now we find out finally he's going to go forward. He's not going to leave it to the Europeans. He is going to go forward. He said, didn't specify what he envisions the second stage of sanctions will look like. But before his summit with Russian tyrant Vladimir Putin last month in Alaska, Trump had threatened to impose a suite of blistering fresh sanctions and tariffs targeting countries that import the Russian oil. That includes both India and China, and Iran, too. It looks like Trump will not walk away from this issue, hence look for some heavy sanctions against anyone who trades with Russia. So that's where we're at right now. Basically, chaos in Jerusalem today with the terror attack, left and right stories about, well, will we accept the proposal? Will Hamas accept, the proposal of Trump, an immediate ceasefire with all the hostages be released? Well, it doesn't seem to be a chance on that. So we're, again, as always, in a state of flux right now. But Israel is continuing the fight against Hamas in Gaza City. They're not letting down. More and more people are able to leave. But again, it's a very delicate situation. And Israel, sadly, like we said yesterday, has enemies from within and without that want to see Netanyahu overthrown, that would rather have, chaos happen and rather leave Hamas in control in Gaza than Benjamin Netanyahu still being the prime minister of Israel. Just like we see the same sort of nonsense here in the United States. The country gets destroyed from within, so be it. as long as we get rid of Donald Trump. It's very sad. It's a sad world we're at, but it's exactly what the Bible says. Remember 2 Timothy chapter 4, they will hate that which is good and love evil in the last days. Isaiah chapter 5, they'll call good evil, call right wrong, etc., etc. So this is what we're seeing. And so this is where we're at right now. So we'll continue on with these stories and see what happens. But the Israel is going forward. They're staying the course in Gaza, and Hamas, no matter what they say, they're not going to accept this deal. And so it's just more of the same old, the fighting until something happens, something gives. And so again, we'll continue to bring these stories to you. We're not surprised by any of this. Heartbreaking that these things have to happen. But this is the sad world that you and I live in right now. All right, I'm Don Stewart. That's the latest. If something else happens in the meantime, we'll bring it to you. We'll have another edition of Breaking News later to give you where we're at and all this. Until then, as always, may the Lord richly, richly bless.